Hey, World History, this is Miss Corey. Welcome to U9-L2 Women in the Middle Ages and the Eastern Orthodox Church. Your job, you're going to watch this Ed puzzle, answer the questions in blue text directly onto the Ed puzzle. So, again, we only have one social studies standards to hit for this unit. So today we are going to be focusing specifically about historical perspectives about religion, as you could probably guess by the title of the slideshow. So this presentation will be split into two parts. Part one is Women in the Middle Ages, and part two is the Eastern Orthodox Church. Now it's the same video, it's all one video. It's pretty much like I had two different subjects to talk about, but they were both kind of short, so I just kind of smashed them together into one big video. Actually, it's not that long of a video at all. So part one, Women in the Middle Ages. Let's talk about them. So, why women were labeled as inferior during the Middle Ages? So, Middle Age Europe was highly influenced by Christianity. Popes, priests, and men in power deemed women inferior. A lot of this stems back to one of the more famous biblical stories about Adam and Eve. If you don't know the story of Adam and Eve, that's okay. Pretty much what happened is Eve was a woman. She gave an apple to Adam, who was a man. And then once Adam took a bite of the apple, they gained sin. And it's a very, very, very common theme in medieval art. You will see it a lot. So, why women were labeled inferior? Ruling men thought women should be like the Virgin Mary. They should be very religious. They should be devoted to God, and they should raise kids. Besides the upper class, women were not literate, meaning they could not read or write, which meant there were no trading of ideas long distances. We talked about this last time too, about why both men and women peasants weren't literate. It was all about controlling the knowledge that people had. So, just like ancient Rome, much of Middle Age history was written by men. There are a few examples of women's written work. You will read one next lesson, actually. So, what were the roles of women if they were wealthy? So, if they were part of a ruling class, women could negotiate marriages for political alliances. They also would keep and archive collections of books, which really helped keep history. It also helped share ideas among upper class women by trading books, and it also influenced what the men read. They could also influence on husbands if their husbands were in the political class about laws and stuff like that. If their parents were wealthy, they could also gain a high position in the church as a nun. Young girls who are wealthy were educated in running household work and how to read and write. Most of what they learned of how to read and write were taught through the Bible or biographies of saints. So don't think they're going off reading some cool adventure novel. Most of it was religious texts. Women wrote letters to each other. A lot of them were friendship letters because they couldn't socialize personally, daily. There's also letters for invitations and gifts. They could learn foreign languages through others. Women could also send love letters and educated in foreign languages such as French and Latin. In public, wealthy women were supposed to take tiny, elegant steps. At social gatherings, they had to talk about things like their love of dogs, hunting, birds, music, and love. Women could hunt alongside men. Actually, that's one of the few things that both men and women could do. And women would typically hunt with falcons, which honestly is pretty cool. So, tell me one thing. What were the roles of wealthy women? You just need to name one thing for me, by the way. I don't need a whole paragraph. All right, now let's talk about women's roles if they were on the poorer side or if they were peasants. So, once a peasant woman was married, they would have to manage a household. On top of that, they also had to go help in the fields with the harvest where the men were as well. Women could work in certain guilds during the Middle Ages. A guild is an association of craftsmen. They could do things like dress and hat making. They could also work in textiles. So that would be like spinning wool, sewing, weaving, and spinning silk. If a man did not have a job and a woman did have a job in an industry, that woman would instantly get fired so the man could have a job. They worked in textiles, but usually they wore terrible clothing. So working women were very overworked and very underpaid. All right, what were the roles of peasant slash working class women? You only need to tell me one thing. All right, now let's talk about laws and women. So women solely could not inherit land and wealth. They could inherit land and wealth, but then it would be immediately under the control of their husband or like the next male relative. Husband would have to get consent from the wife to sell the land if she inherited it, so they had a little bit of say. A woman could make decisions over the land if the husband was off at war. One of the most famous examples of this was in 1066 when William the Conqueror, who was the King of England, went to war. His wife Matilda made laws and decisions over his land. If a knight or lord went to war and died, that wife could take over the feudal land. But there were restrictions, such as she could not bear arms, so she could not have any weapons, and she could not appear in court without a close male relative, such as like a brother or a father. Husbands were allowed to beat wives if she was doing a misdoing. If she was innocent, the man was publicly humiliated in revenge, and sometimes a wife could even beat the husband back. So, pretty much, laws in the Middle Ages were pretty ruthless. So, what were laws like in the Middle Ages towards women? You only have to tell me one thing. All right, so there are examples of women with power. Empress Engelberga, Matilda of Tuscany, Eleanor of Aquitaine, Blanche of Castile, Melisende of Jerusalem, and Joan of Arc. But we're just going to focus on one of those today for the sake of time, and we're going to do Eleanor of Aquitaine because she has a pretty interesting story. So, Eleanor of Aquitaine was a French princess. People loved her strong and charismatic personality. Her father, the king, died with no male heirs in 1137. She inherited the throne with the agreement to marry Louis VII. She was 15 and he was 16. So think of that. That's what, how old you guys are? You have to go and get married in a real country. That's a lot of responsibility. So Louis VII and her went on a crusade, which is a war to Jerusalem. Of course, she was not fighting in it. She just wanted to observe it. During the crusade, Louis VII was very unhappy with her. He ended up divorcing her in 1152 because she had only given birth to daughters. Eleanor was pretty scared, freaked out. She's like, oh my gosh, I just got divorced. I want to get back to France as quickly as I can. On her way back to France, she had even more obstacles because a bunch of noblemen heard the news of the divorce and they all attempted to kidnap her and marry her because whoever would marry her would become the new king of France. So she traveled from Jerusalem all the way to Poitiers, France, which was under the control of England. There, she was saved by Duke Henry Plantagenet, or whatever his last name is. It's a hard last name. Anyway, here's the map. So Jerusalem's way over there. She had to travel all this way over here to France without getting kidnapped. That's a long way to go. So she ended up marrying Duke Henry. Henry became the King of England in 1154. Now, all of France's land came under rule of England. And this was a huge slap in the face for France's nobility because it was revenge for the nobles who wanted to kidnap and marry Eleanor. Together, Eleanor and Henry would have 5 sons. So, unfortunately, Henry was cheating on Eleanor with a mistress. Eleanor got mad and she fled the castle. When her favorite son, Richard the Lionhearted, went to battle, she was actually granted governmentship for his land for 4 years. When Richard the Lionhearted, her son, got captured in 1194, and Eleanor paid most of her money to get him free. She would end up retiring in a convent, that's where nuns live, and died at the very old age of 82. Which today, 82, it's fairly old, but for the Middle Ages, that's really old. Here is a picture of her grave, by the way. I like how she's reading a book. I think that's pretty cool, actually. All right, so women in the clergy. Nuns and other religious women also had a lot of power. I didn't talk about them too much, but if you want to learn more, let me know, and I can certainly send you some information. All right, now let's switch gears to Eastern Orthodox Church and the Byzantine Empire. So what we've talked about so far, the Byzantine Empire, which we abbreviate into BE, they abandoned the western part of the old Roman Empire. We talked about this because there's too many Germanic or local tribes trying to take over the West, and really simply, the Byzantine Empire didn't have enough military force to maintain it. They left the city of Rome and the Pope behind, and is still considered themselves as the Roman Empire, although they literally ditched the city of Rome. All right, so here's a map of the Byzantine Empire. This is about 1025, just to show that it's still a very large empire, although they broke away from Western Europe. So it still is parts of southern Italy. Remember, Rome's like up here, so it does not include the city of Rome. And part of this area, which is like Serbia, Croatia, Greece, and over into Turkey. All right, so in the Byzantine Empire, it is ruled by either an emperor or an empress, and it's not fractured up into many little kingdoms like the Western Europe is. The economy, though, in the Byzantine Empire is really, really bad during this time. So poor farmers had to sell their farmland to aristocrats or nobles. All right, so you're probably thinking, all right, so if the Byzantine Empire broke up with Western Europe, I mean, like, do they still talk to each other? Is there any communication? Yeah, there are. There are frequent contacts between Western Europe and the Byzantine Empire. For example, Byzantine Empire Prince Romanus II actually married a noble from Italy in 944. There's also the exchanging of ideas. So, medical and historical texts were traded among the two regions, and there's also technologies that were being spread. One of the most important ones was paper making, was actually introduced by the Islamic ruled Spain in the 1000s. All right, next, let's talk about the splitting of the churches. So, between Constantine's reign, which was way back in 306, and 1054, the Catholic or the Christian church was unified for the Western Europe and the Byzantine Empire. It was still under one church until dun 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 the Great Schism happened. And that happened in 1054. That's when the Catholic Church split up into two. It split up into the Roman Catholic Church, which would be in the west, the capital being in Rome, Italy, which still is today, and then Eastern Orthodox Church, which is in the east, and that capital is in Constantinople, which today we call it Istanbul, Turkey. And to this very day, that is still the capitals of both these churches. So here's a map of the Great Schism. As you can see here, to the east in the Byzantine Empire, we have the Orthodox Church. In the west, we have the Roman Catholic Church. Now, as this map kind of shows, there is a blurred line. It's not like someone drew a line down the map and just went, you're Orthodox, you're Roman Catholic, sort it out, you know? There was blurring between these two religions, but as you can see, predominantly in the west is the Roman Catholic Church, in the east is the Orthodox Church. So there are four main reasons why the Catholic Church split in 1054. And some of these reasons you're going to be like, really? That was one of the reasons? Yeah, it is. So let's talk about the first reason. The first reason is when Pope Leo, who's this dude right here, crowned Charlemagne in the year 800. This was seen as a treason in the eyes of the Byzantine Empire. You're probably like, Miss Corey, what are you talking about? Ah, you will learn about that during the Dark Ages. I believe between parts 2 and 3, we will talk about Charlemagne and how he was crowned and how that was a huge betrayal to the Byzantine Empire. Okay, so just hold off. You'll learn about it in just a few lessons, I promise. The second reason was the use of unleavened bread at communion. Yeah, that's right, unleavened bread. So there was a huge debate about using yeast in communion bread. So communion is a big sacrament in both of the churches. The West wanted to use bread with no yeast, as East wanted the yeast. Yeah, seriously, that is one of the reasons why the church split in half. The third reason is the wording of the Nicene Creed. The Nicene Creed is the declaration of what specifically Christians believe in. The big, like, kind of highlights of the Nicene Creed is that there are three parts of God: the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Jesus was born of the Virgin Mary, and Jesus was crucified, died, and rose to heaven. I won't get into all the theology of it because honestly, it would take a long time. But if you're interested in learn more about the Nicene Creed, I did post the English translation on the next slide. And then the fourth reason, if priests should be married or not. The Eastern Orthodox Church said, yes, priests can get married. The Roman Catholic Church was like, nope, no marriage. All right, to this day, they are still split into Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox. But you can find both religions across the globe. It's not just an East-West thing anymore. Their leaders are on more friendly terms as well. So, the ecumenical patriarch or Constantinople is the leader of the Eastern Orthodox Church, as the Pope is the leader of the Roman Catholic Church. And that's still true today. So, the ecumenical Bartholomew I is the leader of the Eastern Orthodox as of today. The Roman Catholic Church actually just got a new pope this last year, which is Pope Leo XIV. And you can find churches all around the world and even right here in our local community of both religions. So for the Roman Catholic Church, Mary Queen of Peace in Rogers, the Cathedral in St. Paul, the Church of St. Andrew in Elk River. To get an Orthodox church, you can head down to Minneapolis where there's St. Michael's Ukrainian Orthodox Church. So there's all these churches very local to where we live. So what are the differences between Western Europe and the Byzantine Empire? You only have to give me one difference, by the way. And then why did the Catholic Church split into Roman Catholic and Eastern Orthodox churches? Just give me one reason. All right, let's wrap this up. Today we talk about the roles of women, wealthy women, peasants and working class, the laws of women, and Eleanor of Aquitaine, the differences and similarities between the Western Europe and the Byzantine Empire, as well as the Great Schism. Next up, you're going to do U9-L3 bis clavet reading and quiz. So make sure you do the reading first and then go over and take the quiz. Bis clavet is a French fairy tale. There's werewolves in it. It's pretty cool, actually. And then after that, you're going to do the Dark Ages Part 1, 2, and 3. These are all Ed puzzles. They're by the History Channel. It talks about the Dark Ages again. Dark Ages, Medieval Ages, Middle Ages. They mean all the same thing. Make sure that you answer the questions directly on the Ed puzzle. I will be grading you what you get right or wrong on the Ed puzzle. And then I'll see you back for U9-L7 Power of the Church. If you have any questions, let us know. Thanks for watching. Bye.